Hello. Today we're going to look at getting set up and started with Schema App. So we're going to have a look at the home page here. We're going to look at setting up for automatic deployment with our integration methods, and we'll become familiar with how to use the structured data editor where you'll build most of your custom schema. So on the home page here, there are a few elements to be familiar with. Number one are your different projects where you'll hold the schema for different domains. If you need to make a new project, you simply give it a name and click Create Project. Now you can switch between your active projects to a new current project here by selecting it at the top. And as well, you can navigate to your user settings or user management in the top right of the screen. If you want to get started with one of your projects, we have a quick launch button to the editor and the Your Data Items tab here, and that will get you started. To get set up for automatic deployment, where we can send your custom schema markup to specific pages, we'll want to navigate to the Integration Methods tab here and choose which option makes sense. So if you're a WordPress plugin, you can go there and we'll look at that first. And if you're not, then we'll look at the JavaScript integrations afterwards. There are two things you're going to want to capture from the WordPress plugin integrations page, and that is your current account ID that you'll need for the settings for the WordPress plugin. And as well, you're going to want to download the Schema App Advanced WordPress plugin. Now that's going to come as a zipped folder and just leave it that way. What you'll want to do is upload that plugin following these steps into the WordPress dashboards, and that will get you started. Now, if you need to use a different form of automatic deployment, we can take a look here at the JavaScript integrations. So for the JavaScript integration, you're going to want to generate an API key that will be unique for you, and then select your means of deployment. A common one is Google Tag Manager, but we have other options as well. Just simply follow the steps here, copy in the JavaScript, and you'll be ready to go. Now let's have a look at the structured data editor where you'll spend most of your time actually creating schema markup. You'll notice that the structured data editor has three main panels here. So in the top left, we have the class tree, and below it, we have the instances of whichever schema class we have selected. And on the right is our resource form that gives us the details of whatever we have open in the editor. So here we can look for every schema class in the schema.org vocabulary. I think there's about 800 plus. And you can dive into these categories here by opening up the little triangle beside your schema class. Now to make a selection, just simply click on the word. So let's find local business under organization, and we'll open that. We'll notice two things by selecting a schema class. One, our resource form has changed to show us the details of the local business schema class. We have all of our relevant videos that we can open and look at. These are training documentations and guides to help you get started easily. And as well, we have all of our instances of local business or a subclass of that, for example, legal service. And let's now look at creating a data item. When you create a data item, you're going to want to find the schema class first. So we'll choose local business, and then you'll want to create a data item for that schema class. You'll want to keep three things in mind. So you'll need the name of the thing that you're creating schema markup for, the URL for where that schema markup should go, where that thing is on your website. And of course, you want to confirm the schema class itself. So in this case, we're just doing a random example, but we could say it's for schema app. and we would want to get the Schema App domain and put that in here, and then click OK. Now, when you first create a data item, it'll automatically open what we call the form builder here. You'll be able to quick launch that again by clicking on the edit button that I'll show you in a little bit. You'll notice that the properties here are grouped into 3 different groupings. So we have the required properties at the top, we have the recommended properties, and then we have all the other properties that you could possibly use. Now, we have every single property that's available to each schema class, so you get to fully leverage all of the schema.org vocabulary. The reason for the groupings, though, is we've gone ahead and figured out for each schema class what Google would be calling out as a required property for eligibility with their rich results, and as well what other properties they recommend to include to give yourself a little boost and provide a better experience for their users in search. And then, of course, we have everything else. So what I recommend you do is focus on the required properties, add as many recommended properties as possible, and then think about what is important for you to call out about the thing you're creating markup for, and use the other properties to call that out. So don't take this form as a challenge. You don't have to fill out everything, but do use pieces of these or properties here to call out what you find important. For example, founder is not recommended or required, but for, say, a dentist or a law firm, that may be important to the brand. So you could call that out there. Now, I'm going to go through a couple of different ways to actually enter data into the form builder. And with that knowledge, you'll then be able to much more easily follow along our different guides and tutorials. So there's a few different ways to do this. The first of which is a text box. So you'll notice that text boxes have this drop down on the right-hand side where you get to choose a language. So you could select English and then simply type the email there. So that would be accepted into the form builder. Same with the address. All of these are text boxes where you could say that you're able to just type in there. The next is creating schema for pictures. That would be for, say, the image property or for the logo property. And if you hover your cursor over the question mark, you'll see the schema.org definition, and it says that this can be a URL. And actually, what we're looking for is the image address. And so I'll show you that here. Let's grab the Schema App logo. So I'll right-click, we'll copy the image address, and then go back to the form builder and simply paste that in. Now, what we're going to want to do is click this drop down here that asks us to confirm that we're using the external data item, that URL, to define this property. And we could do the same thing for the image. So I'll just grab this as an example. So we'll copy the image address. We'll go back to Schema App, paste in the image address, and confirm it. And then that'll be fine. The next would be when we need to create another data item to define a certain property. And you'll know that you might want to do that when you see the faint lettering in the property box here saying select some kind of schema class. So select an opening hour specification or select a contact point, select action. That's telling you that you would need to create a data item to define that schema class for this property. So we could make our opening hours by clicking this drop down here just outside of the box and selecting create a data item. Now we'll have the same properties again. We have the name of our thing and the URL. Since in this case it's just defined on the homepage, we're going to leave the URL as that has the homepage domain included right there. And then we'll call this the Schema App Opening Hours. And we'll click OK. Now we can do that for the contact points as well. We'll create a data item. But this time, we actually have a contact page. So we're going to go and grab the contact page URL to include for our data item. So grab that there, and we'll call this one Schema App Contact Page. And we'll change the URL to point towards our contact page. And that way, this information will be included in the home page for the contact point property, but the contact page information will then be also included as the primary entity on our contact page. So we'll click OK to create that. Sometimes we're going to want to just simply use a URL like we did for the image or the picture properties, but point towards a URL that will define a property that is a thing. So for the same as, we're going to want a URL reference that unambiguously indicates the item's identity. For the home page and organization schema or local business schema, which is a subclass of organization, we're going to want to use the social media pages for a schema app or for your business. And so we would say, grab the Facebook or the social media. Here we are. And we'll simply paste that into the form builder as well. Now we have a couple, so you can click the plus button here to create new instances of that property. And we can grab say, our Twitter now, copy the link, put that in here, click to confirm it, and we'll do our Google Plus as well. Copy link address and paste that in. So here we're using this external URL to define the property when it's telling us to. Another way we could do that is with, say, the additional type property. And this is a great place to use Wikipedia to be more clear about what kind of organization or what kind of local business you are. So let's say that we were a dentist and we chose local business. We could look up dentist in Wikipedia. We could look up dentist by using Wikipedia. Dentist, and then reference that Wikipedia page to be more specific about what kind of thing this is. So not only is it a local business, it's a dentist. So just to summarize, we have text boxes where we can simply type into the form builder. We have pictures for the image and logo properties where we want the image address. Some cases we'll need to create a data item to define a property. Or we can reference a URL for the social media pages or the Wikipedia pages for different properties. Once we're done here, we're going to save changes. And we should get a few validation results. Now, these are populated because we didn't finish all of the lines, or all the properties for the required and the recommended sections. So that's just a warning to let you know you may want to come back and complete those, as your eligibility for rich snippets will depend on it. Now, we had created two data items while in our local business form builder. We had made an opening hours data item and we'd made a contact point data item. We had only given them names though, we haven't defined any of their properties. So we're going to want to go and open up these data items, edit them, and fill them out a little bit more. So let's open the contact page data item. We'll see that there's only the name filled out. So if we click edit, we'll open the form builder for our contact point. And this is where we could say our telephone number. We could put our URL again. Say that this is for customer support. Give the email. And fill out the area served. We'll say that the area served is Canada, which is our home country. We offer services in English. And we have a toll-free number. So if we save those changes, we'll see that that information is reflected in our resource page, and it's much more fleshed out. Now to get back, we can click the incoming reference. And the way to read this is to say that the data item you have open, in this case, our contact point data item, is used for the contact point property inside of our Schema App data item, which of course it is. That's actually where we made it. So if we click this, it'll bring us back up a level. And we might want to then go and fill out our opening hours data item. So we would click to open that as well. Again, so far it only has a name. So we would click at it, select the days of the week that we're open. So we'll say that's Monday, say Tuesday, Wednesday, which is good for our example. And we're open 9 to 5. And we'll save those changes. So now our opening hours are reflecting that on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, we're open from 9 to 5. And now we can, of course, go back by clicking our incoming reference. Now there's a few things you can do with your data items once they're made. We can change the URI, and the URI stands for Unique Resource Indicator. It's how we know which data item is what and what information is included. And by changing the URI, you can change where it's deployed to. So when we originally created it, we put our home page, which is correct, but say we wanted to make a change like HTTPS, we could do that here. And once that saves, our change would be reflected in the selected resource space at the bottom there. We have a few more actions. We'll go through them quickly. So we can delete a data item if you so choose. You can regenerate the JSON LD, which will reshuffle and reset all the JSON LD for the connected data item. So this would shuffle the contact points, the opening hours, and this local business one that we've made. We can move our data item between our projects. So if you've started work in the wrong project and you need to migrate it to the one it's supposed to be in, you can do that here. You can actually get the structured data, so we can offer it to you as a microdata format or a JSON LD format. You can make a copy of your data item through clone resource, which this is useful if, say, you have 10 similar pages. For argument's sake, we'll say there's services. You can create the markup for that first service, clone the resource, make a copy of it, and then just edit that data item to change the relevant details. So maybe the name and the description of the service, but then the provider and the area served might be the same. So that's a quicker way of doing it. And of course, we can change the URI or associate it with Wikipedia. Now, there's one more thing I should highlight here, which is how to find data items, or I'll highlight that for you again. If you look up the class, you can see what you've made. So we'll look up the contact points. We'll notice the instances of contact points are here, and we found the one we just made together, the Schema App contact page. Or let's say we want to find that opening hours. We'll say opening hours, specification, and we'll see the opening hours data item in our instances right here. And this is the one we just made together. The last piece of the puzzle here is looking at your data items, which will give you a top-down view of the work you've done. So we'll open this and have a look at the work we've done. So all of your data items will be here. You'll notice a few different important pieces of information. We'll have the URI, which is where you're deploying your markup to. We'll have the name of the data item, which is how you would actually look for it in the form builder if you wanted to reuse that information. We have the schema type, and you can actually sort by the type. So if we wanted to just find our local business data items, we could select that and refresh the selection. There we go. And of course, we have our issues, which reflect missing information in the required section for an error, And we have our warnings, which reflect missing information in the recommended section. So with that, you should be able to create your projects from the homepage, get set up for automatic deployment through your integration methods, and then jump into the structured data editor to create your markup, and then look at all of your work in the Your Data Items tab. Wonderful.